Okay, I'm going to do the briefest little overview to get us started on 13.8, Introduction to Complex Numbers. So by definition, I is equal to the square root of -1. Okay, and then what we can think about is that if what happens if we take I squared here? Well, we can take -1 and replace it with substitute in for I, and then we might remember from a previous lesson that the square cancels out the square root, and then we see that our answer here is -1. Okay, and there's where we get that I squared is equal to -1. Now, you might not realize how landmark this is for you, but this is the first time that when you square a number, squaring a number, right, square it, we end up with a negative, okay? Because all other cases, you know, if you square a positive number, just thinking about 2, that's equal to a positive number. If you square 0, that's equal to 0. And if you square a negative number, we get a positive number. So we see we always get positive numbers. This is the first time that you square a number, because the square root of -1 is a number, and we end up with a negative number. So kind of odd. You might want to research it a little bit on the internet also, and read a little bit about imaginary numbers and how they evolved and where they're used. So this is just a little diagram of the numbers that you know about so far, or should know about at the end of this chapter. This is the field that we've been dealing with all along kind of in your life so far. And if you think about what is encased in these real numbers here, we have our rational numbers, where the key word there, you know, is a ratio, and everything that falls in here can be written as a fraction. And so we have numbers like, just plain old numbers like 2 and 1/3 and 0 and 0.3 repeating. The square root of 4 is in there because that's equal to 2. And then the irrational numbers, we have some ones that you might be familiar with, like pi and the square root of 2, the square root of 3. E is a number we're going to talk about in module 15, but these are numbers that can't be written as a fraction. Okay, so the prefix means without, so without ratio. Okay, so that's all the numbers that you probably know that we normally think about. Okay, then over here we get into some the numbers that come out of taking the square root of negative numbers, like the square root of -25. That's equal to 5i. Okay, 3i is in here, -2i. Okay, so those are the purely imaginary numbers. And then when you combine these together here, you get what's called a complex number. And a complex number has a real piece, so we can say -3, that's a real number, and then plus a purely imaginary number. So the complex numbers are made up with a real piece and an imaginary part. So that's just a little start. And just like when you learn about almost everything in math, guess what you're going to do is you're going to learn how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide these complex numbers, along with simplifying them. Hopefully that gets you started on 13.8.